We have Mark and Charlie. And I want to reference another article which Mark has written. Now, if you want to go and check it out for yourself, it is available on the Athletic app. And it's all about a player who's scoring goals for fun. I'm not talking about Mbappe. I'm not talking about Haaland. It just seems to dominate the headlines and has done for about 2 years now, but where they're going to be in the summer. I'm referencing Darwin Nunez, who's come to the forefront of a lot of fans in recent weeks because of his exploits in the Champions League, effectively getting an audition to go to the Premier League, traveling to Anfield. But his record is just phenomenal. I mean, I think it's 25 league goals, 1.32 goals per 90 in the league. That's better than Lewandowski, Haaland, Benzema, Vlahovic, and Kane. And I know they're all playing in different leagues, but still astronomical numbers. Mark, alongside Nick Miller, I believe you wrote a piece about him just a few weeks ago. How good is he? Is he the real deal? Because over the years, I think of players that have done well in Europe and they become the next big thing. Say a Jackson Martinez when he was at Porto, but he never really kicked on, did he? What about Darwin Nunez?
I mean, it's so hard to tell how well he will do because he is still so young. And I do have to give a lot of credit to Nick Miller, who wrote a large proportion of the article. I was helping out with the numbers as always. But yeah, and you mentioned it yourself, Adam, that you do have to maybe consider the strength of the league there in terms of how many goals he's scored. As you say, I think it's 25 goals in 25 games. And, you know, what is maybe worth, this is something I always find really interesting, what is maybe worth 10 goals in the Portuguese league could maybe be worth 6 or 7 goals in the Premier League. And that sort of tax that you have to add on to a striker is quite important. I think we found that with the likes of Timo Werner, you know, scoring for fun in the Bundesliga. And then, of course, the system comes into play, but then it obviously not quite as prolific when he made the move to the Premier League. And Romelu Lukaku, again, there's obviously the context of how much he's played, but, you know, from going from the Serie A to the Premier League, it's a different story. But he's still a hugely exciting player, don't get me wrong. He's only 22 years old. And Benfica are doing okay. They're third in the league, but they're not, you know, free scoring necessarily themselves in the Portuguese league. And he's still, you know, doing really well. He's the highest scorer in the league. I think he's 7 ahead of the nearest competitor in terms of how many goals he scored. 6 goals in the Champions League, as you mentioned, doing so well on the European stage, and it shows that he can operate at a higher level. And it's something which Nick mentioned as well, and we spoke about, was that it's a bit of a misconception that he's maybe an out-and-out kind of number 9 centre forward, you know, proper front man. He often plays just behind a striker, sometimes on the sort of the left-hand side in a bit of a narrow 3-4-3. And he can drift. He uses his pace and his dribbling skill so well to find pockets of space, more so in that left channel, which is where he can often pop up and is really difficult to track. So he's clearly doing it well because 25 goals in the league, 6 goals in the Champions League suggests so.
Yeah, and we also have to talk about the caliber of opponents he's scoring in Europe, that is. I mean, Liverpool, yeah, we know that, but some people might have forgotten he also scored against Barcelona and Bayern. I mean, that really is saying something. Those are Europe's elite clubs, no matter what position Barcelona are in off the field. But Charlie, I mean, it's one thing to do it in the Portuguese league. It's nothing to do it in the Champions League, where the stakes are incredibly high. But, you know, for every, I don't know, Luis Diaz, you get a Soldado. No disrespect to him. He was a great player. Still is. He's still playing, isn't he? But it just never clicked for him at Spurs, did it? So there's no guarantees. What do you make of Darwin Nunez?
I mean, yeah, like everyone been extremely impressed by him. And I think the way he finishes, how emphatic it is, you know, he's one of those players that when he goes through, you just think he's absolutely going to score here. And those players are so exciting. But yeah, the skill is of, you know, we hear a lot about recruitment teams and how important they are and how through the quantitative stuff, but also through some of the qualitative stuff, you know, they should know a player very well and how likely they are to settle, how likely they are to respond to setbacks. All of these sort of things go into the decision-making of elite clubs. So it will be very interesting to see who really pushes for him. Timo Werner is an interesting one because he was another player I just thought he's going to explode in the Premier League. I mean, Chelsea have had so many strikers who've come over and haven't really done it. But yeah, obviously then you look at someone like Luis Diaz, also coming from the Portuguese league. who you also would have had to apply that tax to that Mark talks about, and he looks like he's settled straight away. So it will be very interesting. He does look like one of these, one of the guys who's going to be among the elite strikers for years to come. But it does change quickly. Jackson Martinez is a name that I haven't heard that for a long time, but he was always being linked with the biggest clubs.
Yeah, I was tooting his horn effectively with all my friends years ago, but I was wrong on that one. But never mind. What about his style of play within a team, Mark? Because, like you mentioned, he's playing on the left, but I'm thinking back in segment 1 of the show, we talked about Spurs and having not evolved that much from Mourinho to Conte and how they're great on the counter. And now in your article, along with Nick, you highlight that that's where he's excelled so far this season. Now, of course, that's more a reflection of the team rather than his skill set. But should he move, and there's an expectation he will move, and he's changing agents and all of that, he's publicly said it, which you put in the article, what kind of team would you think would suit him? Because I'm sure everyone would want him, but it's not suitable for everybody.
Yeah, and it probably does then go back to the Timo Werner example, because Timo Werner played, again, sort of in the left channel for an RB Leipzig side who were very much kind of, if not counter-attacking, then very much using the space and exploiting the space that was in front of them for Timo Werner to use his pace. And it's kind of the same with Darwin Nunez. He's 6'2". He is very, very quick. He's strong and he's powerful. If you were to play him, let's say for Chelsea, of course, he could play alongside Romelu Lukaku because he doesn't necessarily have to be that number 9. But if you were to play him in a really maybe dominant side in the Premier League, where you're playing against a side who's maybe setting up in a really deep block, then one of Nunez's strengths has been hampered there because he's not able to use that space. So I don't know, maybe it would be a Manchester United where it could be using that pace and you getting width all around him and just trying to as I say, exploit that space, because I do think that that's where the difference comes in that tax as well. It's obviously to do with the player and the strength of the league, but the team style I think is really important. If you were to put him in a side where he's being asked to be a bit more of a fox in the box, or is it's really tight space and there's slower build up, then you're not playing to his strength. So whoever it is, I think whichever the team is someone who would maybe need to play a little bit more sort of counter-attacking football, maybe like a Spurs, who knows?
Oh, Charlie, I mean, is it a player that Spurs need in the first place, considering the way he's operating on the left? We know Son is doing exceptionally well there, but there's always been this topic about the cover for Harry Kane as well. Yet who wants to be second fiddle to the England captain? And now Kulusevski's playing on the right, and he's just fitted in like a glove, really. When you look at Spurs, other areas perhaps need fixing. However, he has been linked to Arsenal and all that, and there is going to be an overlap between the sides. You think of Tomiyasu and Emerson Royal in the summer, where they could have gone to the other clubs respectively. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it would be hugely exciting if it happened, but yeah, I think there are bigger priorities there coming up for this summer. I mean, that said, they wanted to get Luis Diaz, and they were very close to getting Luis Diaz in January. Obviously, they got Kulusevski instead, but Diaz plays more on the left, which, as you say, is where Son plays. So yeah, I can't see it myself, but I'm sure they wouldn't say no if it was an easy deal to do. Unfortunately, I don't think it is a particularly easy deal to do, because most clubs in Europe are going to be after this guy.
Yeah, it has big clubs as well. A quick prediction then. The 3 big names in the summer, where they're going to end up. Mark, I'm going to start with you first. Kylian Mbappe.
Real Madrid.
Charlie, is he going to stay at PSG? He's going to move to Real Madrid?
Real Madrid as well, yeah.
The interesting one, Erling Haaland. Mark.
Manchester City, despite my views on it, where I don't think that you'd be maybe necessarily playing to his strengths, Manchester City for me.
Charlie?
Yeah, City looks like the one now. Big front runners. So unless someone makes a late swoop, a late hijacking, then I think he's City's. Well,
they are the only elite club I think without an actual striker. So they certainly need one at least. And I think Olivier Kahn, who's in a very high position at Bayern, has said that the money being offered is just far too much. And finally, Darwin Nunez. Mark, where do you think he's going to be next season? Which club? Because there are a lot of clubs linked to him.
Yeah, I think it's so difficult in the sense that whether there's player movement around these other clubs that could then feed into then where he'd go. So I'm going to go for a left field shout of Manchester United.
Manchester United. Okay. Charlie.
It's really difficult. I'll go with Chelsea.
Chelsea. Okay. Interesting. Obviously, we're still waiting for the takeover to happen.
Yeah. Exactly. There couldn't be more uncertainty in that. So why not go with that?
And then what happens to Werner or Lukaku? We will see. It's going to be a fascinating summer. And then not too far away is the World Cup as well.